Sports.
Welcome back to the show. Zach is now in the chair on the wheels of steel. Zach.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here's what Scotty and I just had an impassioned conversation about the college football bracket, and I want to put a bow on it with this statement here. Scotty loves Boise. Now he believes that Boise is ready to really make some noise, right, Scotty? Is Scotty's mic up over there?
Let me get you up. There you go, Scotty.
Tell me when.
Yeah.
All right. So here's
I didn't say Boise. I didn't say anything about what Boise's going to do, except I think they deserve their bye in that seat.
Okay. Here's a thought I have. Okay. And I just had it. And it's something that I should like tease better because it's a big statement. If SMU and if Boise State, if those teams can win, then I'll personally start looking at the college football landscape much differently. In a sense that, you know, Scotty has talked about this and we've mentioned it a little bit, just a flattening out of the landscape of college football because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, because, you know, again, I'll say it, the guy that's a 5-star that goes to Alabama and now he realizes he's going to be a backup for 2 years playing safety. He wants to go play somewhere right now so he can get paid more money, right? And because now he's not buried on the depth chart, so he'll go play somewhere. And we're seeing that, right? Like I was talking to a football writer. God, who the heck was it? It was Shahan Jay Araja, and I think it was off like camera or something. But we were talking about how these teams are not getting, they don't have the depth that they used to have. Like Alabama, who obviously is not in the playoff because they lost too many games this year. They don't have the depth, and it hurt them late in games. Where whether it's a guy running around that's a menace on special teams, blocking kicks and returning kicks for touchdowns, you know, now that guy is going to play football at SMU, right? He's transferring to go play where he can get paid and make an impact right away. And that's different than 2-3 years ago. So I think and if those teams win, like if Boise wins, if SMU wins, and God forbid they go far, not God forbid, but that's me clutching my pearls as like an old school college football guy.
I would argue that Boise has the kind of pedigree for this, though, at this point in time. Like, let's not go back to everybody not thinking they belong back in, you know, when they beat Oklahoma in a Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, they have constantly, it's kind of like North Dakota State in the division below it, of where once you kind of get in a habit of like being like, this is what we do, then you go out and you do that. Boise has played high stakes football for a long time. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all for them to be, you know, sitting there versus Georgia for a chance to play for the semis, or them being one of the Final Four teams.
I mean, we're gonna see. And if you're right about that, everything changes. The whole system and the whole thing that I believe in is crumbling before my eyes, which is actually a good thing.
And what's hard about your statement is if SMU were to beat Penn State, then it's SMU and Boise State in that second round, right? So only one of them is going to get to the Final Four.
Yeah.
But I think Indiana and Arizona State are other teams that, or if they were to win a game or two, then I think that would prove the same point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be the same level as like an SMU, but for sure. Well, no, I would say Arizona State's kind of on that same, like these teams don't have the same money to use that a lot of the bigger programs do.
Indiana had never sold out a football game until this season.
Yeah.
They were literally nobodies in the sport. I mean, and not to disparage.
No, I mean, if you go,
but like they were nothing, and now they're in it. Like,
what was it? God, they had the Elamine guy who was really good. And then they had another player. Gosh, I forget who was a wide receiver that ended up that was
Antoine Randall L.
Antoine Randall L. Yeah, I was getting mixed up with Khalid Elamine. Yeah, Indiana has not been long on like football history and tradition. So, all right, well, we'll see. I wanted to pop in there and make that point. Okay, Belichick on the Tar Heels coaching job has just weighed in. Let's get the latest on that. I want to. He says we'll see, but I want to just. This is just breaking news right now. So Bill Belichick confirmed he has been in talks with the University of North Carolina for the school's open position at head coach. Sources told ESPN the talks between Belichick, by the way, 73, and they want these. So he's up for that job. He interviewed for it, and I think personally he's looking at a college job because his girlfriend. But that's just me. I think there's a strong woman behind every man making a crazy decision. The good and the bad, right? A lot of times it'll help your life, but sometimes you can get whipped too. That's just an outlier, by the way. I don't truly know if I believe that, but it is interesting when you meet a guy like that has a new young girlfriend. Like a lot of the decisions in a personal life, or you're just kind of like, whoa, like what's going on here? It's like you're on a plane and you're experiencing all kinds of turbulence. So that's interesting. But here's the deal. Belichick just confirmed about a half hour ago or 20 minutes ago on the Pat McAfee show that he has had a couple of good conversations with North Carolina Chancellor Lee Roberts. So when you're talking to the chancellor, nobody's wasting any time. Like something's happening there. So that gives me the idea that we're up the food chain. Just I know a little bit how this stuff goes. You don't talk to the president until it goes down the line, in my experience being around it. So he confirmed that they've had good conversations and that he concluded the interview by saying about the UNC job, we'll see. The one thing is the transfer portal opens today. So that leaves their roster in flux. So you can expect like North Carolina to make a decision rather quickly on who their head football coach will be, if it's going to be Bill Belichick or not. God, that will be a crazy, by the way, for Bill Belichick not to shut that down is like very telling. So that's what we think of that. And that's the latest on that. Wanted to weigh in and just talk. I hate to say weigh in. What the heck am I weighing in? Juan Soto. I will be remiss if I didn't bring this deal up today. So the superstar outfielder from the New York Yankees originally started his career with the Cleveland Indians, went to a World Series with the Indians, lost it, went to a World Series with the Yankees, lost it. This is not a reflection of who he is as a player, but that's where people may know him from a national perspective. He signed a 15-year, $765 million contract to play with the New York Mets. Now, like, where is this money coming from? Like, if you were to combine, and just to give you a little bit of context, if you were to combine the overall earnings, career earnings of, I think, LeBron James and Tom Brady, you're still like 60 million, something short of this contract. And those are two guys who played for a very long time. This is like, it's great for baseball players. And like, look, this stuff used to make sense. And here's what I'll say. Like, I can remember years ago, you would talk about, okay, well, why is Kobe Bryant making so much money? You can even throw LeBron in there. Why is LeBron making so much money? Well, okay, let's just look at it this way. Movies, right? Like, think about how much Tom Cruise gets paid to do like Mission Impossible movies. Like, it's a franchise. They know it's going to be successful. He commands a certain amount of money because he's a box office draw. And he's the only Tom Cruise. Like, you just can't plug in another Tom Cruise. I'm not saying that the guy's like the greatest actor of all time, but you get what I'm saying. It's an example. And by the way, I don't like how this Bois poster is still up. I just noticed that. But we're going to leave it up out of respect because Bois is a great show. If you don't watch Bois, you should watch it on the Rogue Media Network. Mike puts a lot of time into that. It's actually almost like a rewatchables of King of the Hill. And I respect Mike because he puts a lot of work into it. That's Mike Hamilton. So Bois, if you like King of the Hill, you can watch that show. Back to what I was just talking about, as my attention deficit is now on full display. When we talk about Juan Soto and how much money he's making now, to kind of piggyback off the point that I just presented, is there can Juan Soto do something that no one else can do? I guess he can. I guess so. I mean, and then you say, okay, so $765 million, right? I just got off the phone with somebody who brought to my attention that the Yankees offered $760 million. So that, if you're telling me you're making that much money, okay, and you're going to go from the Bronx to Queens for an extra $5 million. Like, so there's something there that whether it's personally with Juan Soto, whether he wants to do it, on his own with the Mets, because that's a much different animal. Are you going to get the support with the Mets? Well, last year, hey, they made it to the postseason. There was a lot of like charm and good vibes around that. It was kind of like a run that was inconceivable. The Yankees, it's like business as usual, right? They got to the World Series and they fell short. That was upsetting. The deal does include an out after 5 years and no deferred money. If Soto does opt out, the Mets can avoid it by increasing his annual salary in the final 10 seasons by $4 million, from $51 million to $55. That would take the overall value to $805 million. Mets fans everywhere, I want to give you some good news. If Juan Soto were to stay for the entire life of this 15-year contract with the Mets, that would mean for the last 4 years, you would only be paying, Mets fans, your organization would only be paying Juan Soto, because guess what? 11 years from now, you stop paying Bobby Bonilla $1 million a year. So there you go. So for the last $4 million of your deal, or the last 4 years of your deal, you'd only be paying Juan Soto. Now, will Juan Soto still be playing for the Mets in 15 years? No. I don't think that Juan Soto will be playing for the Mets in 4 years. I think this is one of the situations that we see, but this is one that's exceptional because it's for so much money, that he's going to be another guy, a big name free agent that signs in Queens, that goes over like a fart in church, like my father would say. Just not it's not going to go over well. Okay. And why did Juan Soto take this money and not go back to New York? You could also say, I've heard from people around baseball this morning, particularly, that, Scott Boras is his agent. Scott Boras very likely is behind Juan Soto, talking to him about the importance of taking the deal, and how when you take the $765 million on the deal, you now are, there's levels, right? So now every other player that comes behind you is working off of this number as the highest ever. I know it's there because we're talking about the Mets and Steve Cohen and exorbitant amounts of cash that he has, but I'm not quite sure where the return on investment comes from a contract like this. Ultimately, we'll find out. It's like, are we now in the world where, okay, these owners have billions of dollars and they're going to spend whatever it takes to get the best pieces onto the field? Like, are the TV contracts lucrative enough where this makes sense? I guess they are. I guess it does. Unfortunately, I don't have all of that information in front of me right now, but we are getting to the point with contracts that are this lofty as to like, dude, where is this money coming from? The Mets are not making that much money. Now, is Steve Cohen? Sure. And we've seen this happen in pro sports for a while, right? Organizations take huge swings paying a lot of money for players with money that they have not made earned on the field or within their sports. Sometimes it's money that the owner has brought to the table. So I don't know. Is this the next guy that is getting paid this exorbitant amount of money, or is it a bad deal? We're going to find out. Zach, you're kind of a baseball guy. What are your thoughts on this deal?
So I do think it is a exorbitant amount of money for the amount of time that's spent over it. It's more than I think almost any contract in team sport history.
It is.
The thing that I don't know is like to put so much of that into one player. The Mets were close, but was it just Juan Soto close? And if so, then maybe Steve Cohen looks like a genius for going out and spending the money to get him then, and that takes him over the limit. But if it doesn't, then everybody always comes back to bad contracts, and that's, like one of them. The reason the Dodgers don't have to deal with any of that is because, Shohei has been phenomenal since they've done it. But if he starts to kind of, wane in the next couple of years, then they'll be like, well, why did they offer him that deal? I always find it interesting to see how much teams are willing to like pony up or like just throw in for one player. And it always seems like every couple of years there's a free agent like this. Like when Bryce Harper was a free agent, it was kind of, stuff like that. Or, we knew that the market for Soto was going to be big. But Cam and I spent last week talking about how we thought the Red Sox could get him for in the 600 million range. So for it to go all the way up to 765 million just seems baffling. Not bad, but just like you said, where's the money?
Did you hear Cam this morning?
Yeah.
What was Cam saying about that?
That we found that apparently the Mets dug in a little bit deeper to be able to do that. Like how we had talked about how it had been something we saw reasonably of him signing there if he wanted to, of that the money kind of spoke a little bit more than where I think we all knew that he was going to stay in New York. It was just a matter of what team it was.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to come back. I got a couple more footnotes to tie this thing up on. A couple documentaries I want to mention that I can't get out of my mind right now. And Cowboys Monday Night Football tonight. I'll tell you why that's such a huge game. Stay with us.
It's the Pete Souza Show.